Hi, I'm Femi OK. On today's episode of The Stream, we are looking at the women in Afghanistan. There are several issues we're going to be tackling. You can join me on YouTube. The comment section is right here waiting for you. I'm going to be looking at how women are being restricted by Taliban dress codes, who can work, who can't work, girls going to school, what access do they have to education? I have so many questions. Put your question right here. Be part of today's show.
Taliban are trying to eliminate women of Afghanistan. They took the right of education, higher education, work, freedom of speech, freedom of movement, and even forced the women of Afghanistan full coverage faces. All Afghans are facing poverty, but women and also girls who face greater obstacles obtaining food, healthcare, financial resources are disproportionately affected. We want from international community to not recognize Taliban as a government and also put financial sanction on Taliban and also not leave Afghan women alone.
Joining our conversation today, we have Zaha and we have Wajma. Zaha, welcome to The Stream. Please introduce yourself to our audience around the world. Tell them who you are, what you do.
Good evening. My name is Sahar Fetrat, and I work with the Human Rights Watch with the Women's Rights Division. And it's my pleasure to be sharing this panel with Wajma.
Thank you so much for coming. Wajma, really good to have you on The Stream. Please introduce yourself to our viewers around the world.
Thank you. I'm Wajma Fro. I run a local organization in Afghanistan, and I work with around 200 women, in 34 provinces of Afghanistan. So my life starts, with messages, calls, and pleas from the morning until evening, and then life goes on like that as life has turned into a nightmare for the women of Afghanistan these days.
All right, thank you so much for spending time with us. Also, hopefully, we should be joined by Zaka Yaftali. She is the Director of Women and Children Legal Research Foundation. We're hoping we'll bring her in just a moment. Wajma, I want to start with you first of all, because you said how much of the lives of women in Afghanistan you are across. If you could describe what is going on right now for your country women, what would you say?
I think before getting what we have lost, it's important to see what we had, right? So I myself am a product of the past 20 years of Afghanistan, new Afghanistan. I was able to go to school, I finished my education, I went to UK, I did my law degree, I came back to Afghanistan, I started my own organization, I was able to advocate for, millions of other women, I was able to bring in the laws within the countries, legislation as part of the teams that we have been working and worked with so many other women, who found their ways. So today, after August 15, when Afghanistan was kind of handed over, without a political settlement to the Taliban, a peace deal that was signed by the US, and then many of the Afghan politicians were literally kind of, sold out as well. And then what happened was that overnight, so all those, 2 million women who were working like a clerk or in the civil service, teachers, the next day they all kind of, rushed to their work spaces. And then they were stopped at the gates and at the doors that, no, you can't go anymore. So it was a very big shock to a lot of women, because we had, women working in all these sectors, not just in the big cities in Kabul where we have been living, but also in, in bigger cities in the urban areas. Yeah. So it was a very big shock. And we thought, okay, maybe the situation will start changing in a few months as the Taliban will find their space, but then life became harder. So right now, not only you hear about the girls' schools being, closed, that's one part of the story. Women are not able to go to work. I work with 200 women on daily basis, and the stories I hear, the women who, not just the revenge that's being taken from them, but the space that has been taken away. So if you're a woman in Afghanistan, your life starts within the four walls of your home from the morning until evening.
So Wajma, women are now stuck in their own homes. Let me bring in Zaka. Zaka, welcome to the conversation. So lovely to have you here. Recently, just a few days ago, there was a grand assembly, a Loya Jirga, that happened, and no women were invited. What does that tell us? A grand assembly, thousands of men, not a single woman.
Thank you so much. We cannot say this Grand Assembly or Loya Jirga because it was a gathering of Taliban mullahs, that all Taliban mullahs came together and they wanted to get some legitimacy, internal legitimacy to the Taliban. And this was the main aim for conducting of this mullahs Jirga in Afghanistan. And unfortunately, as it was not inclusive. There wasn't all of the ethnics there was representative of all ethnics in Afghanistan. Inside of this, there wasn't any representative of women. So this is the reality of the Taliban. This is the reality of Taliban, that they are not accepting a woman as a human in the country, and they have their own viewpoints regarding to ownership on women, because they're thinking woman is a property of themselves and they can do anything that they want with the woman. And also inside of this, the very main result that we find from this mullahs gathering in Afghanistan, it was that Taliban is the same Taliban. They have not changed. They are the Taliban of 20 years ago. And they are those people that they increase their crimes and violation on human rights and women's rights right now in Afghanistan than 20 years ago.
Okay. Let me. Yes. Go ahead, Saha.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add to everything Vajma and Zarqa said. Life has been interrupted in Afghanistan, lives of people. And this is generally about the whole country. It's as if everyone is waiting for this nightmare to end and they don't know when. And it's almost been a year now. Women, everyone knows what's happening to women in Afghanistan. And it's a long list of what they have lost and what we all have lost. But I think one thing that I can say is that women have lost their personal space and their political space, and they're being removed from society. And just adding to what Zarqa said, yes, this Jirga was a party of men who have one thing in common, and that is like restriction on women's rights. They came together, and that kind of Jirga doesn't have any social or political legitimacy, in my view.
Let me just bring in the voice of the Taliban, a Taliban spokesperson who was asked about what are you doing for girls' education. And we've paired that up with a women's group who were pushing back on our voices need to be at the table. We need to be at the table. This was from a few days ago. Let's have a listen. Let's have a look.
On the topic of girls' education, I said earlier that it is a problem that requires a solution, and the government will take the responsibility of looking into this demand of the people. It's important for future generations as well. There will be a conducive atmosphere for it when religious scholars agree on a mechanism. Then it can be approved. It will take some time.
There should be an Afghan woman representative when there is a discussion about Afghan women and the future of Afghan girls. Only she would be able to explain the pain through her words. Nobody else can represent Afghan women. Nobody can explain the pain Afghan women have suffered for the past 40 years, and especially over the past 10 months.
Saha, I see you nodding when you hear that woman talking about the pain. I want to share with you another video, and this is of women protesting against the increasingly tight dress restrictions. I want to ask you about the spirit of women who are in Afghanistan daring to protest. Let's have a look.
The Ministry of Vice and Virtue has imposed the hijab on women across Afghanistan. Hijabs are an Islamic issue, but the Taliban want to apply their own ideology on all women. We will raise our voice against all the injustice and will oppose the Taliban's tyranny against the people of Afghanistan, especially women. The women of Afghanistan will fight till the last breath.
Saha, this is bold.
It is. I have a lot of respect for all the women in Afghanistan who still have the courage to go out and to protest. And at the same time, I'm working from outside. I'm very much connected to Afghanistan. And like Bajmajan, I wake up to this horrible news from Afghanistan and sleep with the same kind of news. And I work with women directly, women and girls who are not allowed to go to school or not allowed to work. And I just want to say, I don't want to glorify it from outside. I want to say that we are with Afghan women who are inside Afghanistan in solidarity, but it takes a lot of courage to be who they are and to do what they are doing with all the restrictions that they are facing. I just want to add that Afghanistan was a patriarchal society before, and so now the Taliban and patriarchy, they work hand in hand, and it's horrible for Afghan women.
And I have to say that, we shouldn't look at Afghanistan and Afghan situation, the Afghan women's situation in isolation, or girls' school issue in isolation. We have lost a whole space that we had created for 20 years. So, women in businesses. So I could, for example, a typical day in my work, my morning would start with meetings with, for example, in the government or with other organizations, with women, or we could simply, for lunch, we could go to a cafe, which was run by women. We could simply go to a restaurant, which was run by women. Or in the afternoon, we would go for a gym, for a simple workout. All of that is taken away right now. And not only that, and the level of fear that has been, that you see in women, because, for example, right now I'm talking to a number of women whose men in the family have been taken away. Taliban have kidnapped men to make women afraid. The society already presses women. So now, the families would press women more that the moment you raise your voice, the men are going to actually pay the price. So that also kind of, has created so much fear. So literally, I think there's literally nothing in terms of the rights that you can say for women. But overall, the country is also at war. Like the north of Afghanistan right now that I'm talking to you, in the north of Kabul, there is a bomb explosion that's ongoing. The fifth one, I actually, just saw that the fifth one happened. So let's not just see that Afghan women are in crisis. Actually, this is the country, 40 million population in crisis.
I'm so glad you said that, because there's conflict, there's economic crisis, there are humanitarian crises as well. Earlier, Zaka, I'm going to put this to you. Earlier, we spoke to a senior advisor on Afghanistan at the Kroc Institute for International Peace Studies. This is Aref. He gives us a really candid description of life in Afghanistan today. Have a listen to Aref and then please respond.
Afghans are facing a great number of challenges in their daily lives. Purchasing power of the absolute majority of the population is too low. Girls above grade 6 are losing a whole year of school, and there is no indication that the ban on their education will be lifted. The regime is using violence and suppression as a strategy against its own people, and there is acute local inability to address natural disasters. The international response is like building a roof and then realizing that there are no walls to support it.
Zaka, how does a country bear all of that? How is that possible? What are you hearing?
Thank you so much. Before I come in to you, I want to just raise an issue regarding the things that the spokesman of Taliban, Zabiullah Mujahid, said about the reopening of girls' school. Unfortunately, Taliban are not honest about the things that they are saying and the excuse that they are presenting about reopening of girls' schools. They are saying that there is a committee which is working on the curriculum of Afghanistan. So it is very funny that there is a curriculum which is Islamic for boys, and they are continue their studying, but this curriculum is un-Islamic for girls. So it is not the right things that they are saying, and this is they are all own clarification from that they want to share, especially for international community, about why they are not reopening the girls' school in the country. And I am agree with all of the things that my friends raised before. Afghanistan is the only country in the world that there is lots of restriction and violence against women. Afghanistan is the only country that there isn't permission for girls to go to the school after grade 6, and there isn't any right to work for women. There isn't any right for women political participation. Women can't choose their clothes. They can't go out without a female accompany, even when they are sick. And they can't go to the doctor and they should stay at home till one of the male member of their family can. And also they can use from local transport in Afghanistan because according to the one of the decree of the Taliban, the driver of local transportation, they don't have the permission to drop those women that they are alone.
Okay.
And so there is lots of inhumanity, there is lots of injustice for women right now in Afghanistan. Taliban at all, they erase women from all of the aspects of their life.
Right.
And we can't see any sign of woman participation right now in Afghanistan.
All right, so Guess, I have questions for you from our audience who are watching right now. I'm going to ask you to address these questions briefly because then we can get to more of these questions. So, very straightforward question for you. This one comes from Ali for you, Sahar. Are women allowed to work in Afghanistan? Is all work, if you're a woman, banned? Can you tell Ali?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I believe more than 95% of jobs for women are banned, and it's only some women, like doctors, who are allowed to work, or some people who work in services like some teachers, female teachers who teach students in the primary school, and also some TV presenters that you can already see how they have been forced to wear a face mask on air. So it's only a small percentage of women who can actually work right now.
Okay, another question, because I'm going to get in as many as I can. Thank you, Zahra, for that one. Judy Kinsman asks, thank you for watching, Judy. Thanks for your question. Are women being supported by men in Afghanistan, or are they being left out to dry? Are men happy with women having few rights? Wajma.
I think, I don't want to enter into this battle of genders, but I know that, in a society when already the number of violence against women cases were in, thousands. And when the Taliban, the first thing they did for the courts, they said a woman cannot complain against their husbands or men in the family to any court. So, of course, it takes away, it gives them, the patriarchy, a lot of rights to continue suppressing. So, but then I want to also ask the question that, okay, so what is the solution? Yes, I can sit here and forever talk about all these challenges, but why this has happened? The world, the international community has a role that they have played in destroying Afghanistan. They have a responsibility for where we are, this mess, and they are not doing what they should be doing, rather than those photo ops in Doha, which the U.S. And other, diplomats are taking up pictures with the Taliban and they think something is happening. The U.S. signed a deal with the Taliban. Now come and deal with them. Make them actually, govern Afghanistan in a way that the people could actually breathe, at least, under that dictatorship right now.
Earlier, Masuda sent us this thought about how do you deal with the current situation. And it's about assets of people from Afghanistan being frozen right now. This is what Masuda says should happen next.
The U.S. continues to freeze the Afghan central bank's reserves at a time of a huge economic and humanitarian crisis. In addition, $2.5 billion of other monies continue to be frozen. That includes the money of ordinary Afghans, of companies, and of NGOs. Afghan families are dealing with record levels of hunger and poverty. 90% of Afghans don't have enough to eat. half of them are surviving on 1 meal a day. And while a famine was largely averted this winter due to the support of donors contributing to a UN fund, Afghans are wondering what will happen next.
So I am just looking here, when we're talking about this, what happens next, let's be realistic about what's happening now in Afghanistan. Food insecurity in Afghanistan. This has come from the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification Report from May of this year. 19 million people, acute food insecurity, 20,000 people in catastrophe. Oh, goodness, 6 million people in emergency, 13 million people in crisis. So many levels of multiple crises. Is the Taliban set up to cope with this, Wajma? Can they? Because they're saying if we just have the money, actually, let's play that clip. Give us the money, we can handle it. Let me just play the Taliban. This is a little clip that they say, give us the money and we can handle it. Let's have a listen to them.
The Islamic Emirate is asking the world to give the Afghans their most basic right, which is the right to life, and that is through lifting the sanctions and unfreezing our assets, and also giving assistance after destroying lives for 20 years.
The cigar says that when the U.S. left Afghanistan, $18 billion worth of military equipments were left inside Afghanistan. And from what we hear, that a lot of this is being actually sold out in Pakistan and other, illegal markets. So the Taliban are not actually broke right now. In the past 10 months, they have been receiving millions and millions of dollars actually in the aid. But the problem is governing. I think the international community, because they brought the Taliban on top of Afghanistan, like literally on top of our heads. So now they are responsible to teach the Taliban how to govern. We are not asking for another war on terror. We saw how failed, that was. What we are asking is that at least there has to be some kind of, reciprocity and negotiation with the Taliban in a way that's more conditional, that actually brings some result, and at the same time make the Taliban actually respond to the needs of the people, and they put some sort of, sticks to what the Taliban are actually promising, because it's not about just the money. And by the way, for that money that's frozen, it's 15% of Afghan's bank. So it's not going to go into the pockets of Afghan people. It will go into the pockets of the Taliban.
I really like... please, Zaha, go ahead, because I really like what we heard there, which was what happens next? What will happen next? That's from somebody from Afghanistan. What will happen next? Zaha, can you help us understand what might happen next?
Yes, first of all, it's just very ironic for the Taliban spokesperson saying save lives. I mean, for a group that terrorized the people of Afghanistan, made our life literally nightmare. We still have nightmare of the Taliban till this day, and they talk about saving life. It's quite ironic. But about what could be done. The international community and the UN, they're sending confusing messages to the world and to the Taliban as well. From one side, they talk about, they put all these restrictions on the Taliban or talk about sanctions. And on the other side, they fly them with private jets to Norway and other countries. This is a very mixed signal, and it is a wrong one, and it's wrong for the people of Afghanistan. If the international community and the UN, they should work together to have one kind of message to the Taliban and respond to the Taliban in a way that will either make them responsible and accountable, or find other ways of dealing with them, because life has been interrupted in Afghanistan and outside for Afghans.
Ladies, I want to thank you all so much for helping us understand what is happening in Afghanistan, not just from women's perspective, but from the country's perspective and the multiple crises that the country is in. Zaha, Zaka, Wajma, thank you. Audience, thank you for your questions, your thoughts on YouTube. Come here, just have a look here on my laptop. If you're trying to keep up to date with what is happening in Afghanistan, have a look here on my laptop. YouTube. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Here we go on my laptop, aljazeera.com. Type in Afghanistan, and then you can see some of the latest stories that we're covering on Al Jazeera about Afghanistan. Trying our best to keep you up to date. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time. Take care.